Welcome. Welcome back to the potty. Wow, Caleb, you grew some hair there in the last
Oh,
few.
I took it from my beard and put it on my head.
Okay, well, obviously this is Caleb. This is Heidi. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Heidi. I'm the older sister. I like long walks in Disneyland and I do photography.
Beautiful. Nice. Heidi is our resident expert in all things Disney, I would say.
Yeah.
Everything. But today specifically we're going to be talking about Disneyland.
Yes.
So, just to kick us off, I was thinking about this cumulatively. How many days do you think you've spent at Disneyland in your entire life?
Dang, I wish I had also thought of this because I could probably get you an exact date, but I would say if I had gone consecutively, at least a month or two or three.
Whoa. If you're a cruise member, you'd be like a platinum member.
Hashtag goals page. Hashtag
So yeah, I mean, obviously, like everyone sort of knows what Disneyland is. There's always that tagline, happiest place on earth. And I mean, I would say so.
Absolutely. Like even when there's like screaming children and random Karens, like you don't even pay attention to that stuff because of all the ambiance, like the food tastes good, the music in the background always matches the land you're in. And they have strategically placed it to where you can't see the outside world or hear it. So you kind of forget that you're in the real world and you can kind of just check out and just have fun for the day.
Yeah, it really does feel like just so unique.
Yeah, I love it.
Okay. So if you were in the mall, right?
Yeah.
How could
Just
you
the regular mall.
just a regular mall? Just a
Okay.
regular mall. Um,
I'm picturing it.
okay, good. Um, you're in a regular mall. Let's say, how would you be able to spot a Disneyland fanatic?
Oh, I would just walk past the mirror. It's actually super easy. Usually they've got like the combination of like a lanyard and a Loungefly backpack.
Oh,
Or
that's true.
yeah, or like the spirit jerseys. I mean, you can get them online, but it's like a thing you do when you go to the park is you get a spirit jersey. And for those of you who don't know, the spirit jersey is kind of this long sleeved, lightweight sweatshirt. I think it's considered warm in California, but it's just for fun here in Idaho, or probably in West Virginia too.
Probably.
Shoot, did I call out our states? Are we not supposed to do that? I'm in Colorado and Paige is in Missouri.
I don't think anyone is going to come after us. We have like 20 views.
I'm new. Anyway, it's a lightweight sweatshirt and it has usually it says Disneyland or Disney World across the back in big poofy letters. Sometimes they'll mix it up like for Haunted Mansion, they have some Haunted Mansion ones, but it's like a fashion trend if you've gone to Disneyland. So everyone usually takes one home with them.
I do have a
Um,
quick question about that, really quick.
yeah.
Um, so I noticed that the jerseys, you're right, the jerseys and the lounge flies and the lanyards, is that just like a recent thing, or has that always been like, what do you think it was before that?
Um, so I got into it in 2018 and I don't remember the spirit jerseys being a thing right off the bat, but then they just emerged. And at first I was like, ugh. Like I wasn't a fan because they weren't, like I said, they weren't warm enough for Idaho, but they were too warm for California. But eventually I was like, you know what, I have to have one in my life because they grew on me and they came out with cooler styles. So I would say that one probably around the same time I got into it because I don't remember them being there right off the bat. But the Loungefly backpacks, I believe they were a thing when I started. So before 2018, I would say my first one was a Buzz Lightyear backpack. It looks like the back of his pack, so you kind of look like you're Buzz Lightyear from the back. It's pretty cool. So I wish I knew on that one, but I feel like the spirit jerseys are a more recent thing.
Um,
And then the lanyards are for collecting pins, technically. Um,
oh.
but I have in my history, my work history, I've always had jobs that have you wear a badge. So I just collected lanyards for the sake of wearing them to work.
Yeah, that's true. I've seen like a lot of Disney ones. I didn't even think that they would actually be from Disney.
Yeah, I mean box lunch and all that has them too, but you can tell because the Disneyland, it'll like have a little Disney I wouldn't really say patch because it's kind of plastic, but near the buckle it'll specifically say Disneyland or Disney World.
Hmm. So I guess
Yeah.
this is like sort of like an introduction to like our first segment, which is like talking about the fandom or like the culture of the fans. So
Hmm.
like how do you think like in one word, how would you describe Disneyland fans?
Passionate. you almost
Ooh.
you almost have to be because there's kind of this hate towards Disney adults.
Yeah, I
Um,
would say that.
but I don't think people realize that Disney really caters to adults. Like it's a common misconception that it's for kids. Like if you look at the park as a whole, whoa, woo, if you look at the park as a whole, like a large percentage is not fun for kids. So
Yeah.
like you can't say that it's only for kids because if you look at the activities and the food and beverages and I don't know, just even some of the plays, like they did a little run of Rogers the musical. I doubt that was like entirely meant for kids, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think it's just a common misconception that it's for kids when there's so much made available to adults, and it's so amazing and awesome. I couldn't imagine I'm kidless, so but I couldn't imagine going to Disneyland and only doing the kid things. I feel like you would miss out on an entire world of awesome if you did that.
I see people take okay, my least favorite ride, your favorite ride, and I know what it is. We can say it at the same time. Ready? One, two, three. Guardians of the
Guardians
Galaxy.
of the Galaxy.
Yeah, I hate that ride. I hate the feeling of being dropped, but I know you live for it. And I see like people take their like 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds on that, and I'm like, talk about trauma.
Oh man, I had this one girl who sat by me and she was like just barely tall enough. And they have these little handlebars like down by your legs when you're sitting. And it wasn't good enough for that girl. She wrapped around my arm and she wrapped around her dad's arm and she was just screaming for dear life. And like at one point she was like leaning on me, like I just like felt for her. I was like, I didn't have to ride that ride when I was her age. I couldn't even imagine.
Yeah, I totally get it. Like the adults, I think Disneyland specifically is shifting more towards adults because I did see something that they're doing adult only nights.
Yep.
Yeah,
Wow, what that would be like. I gotta go to one of those, to be honest.
think about it. No strollers.
No stroll. You know how many times I've been clipped by those babies? Like we have this, I go with my best friend Miranda, and we have this rule that if there's strollers in our way, we try to stay close because it's easy to get lost in crowds. We have this rule that if there's strollers in our way, we just like bound and weave around them until we can get ahead of them because they don't care that you're there. And so you have to get out of their way.
And it's tricky because if you're walking behind, you don't know if there's a kid in the stroller or
Yeah.
just stuff.
Yeah, and not to mention the stroller parking. Sometimes it expands beyond its area. And so like you'll be going down a perfectly normal path and then bam, just strollers. And so you have to like go out of your way because the cast members will pack them. So you
Oh
have to
yeah.
like literally leave the area and go around because there's so many strollers.
You know, I was thinking about like the section of the podcast where we talk about like the culture of the fans.
Mhm.
And I would argue that Disney, specifically Disneyland, not even just Disney fans, Disneyland fans, I would argue have the biggest culture in any culture of fandoms.
That's true. I agree with that statement because it goes worldwide. Like you've got, France Disneyland and Hong Kong Disney and all that. And so those guys want to come here, we want to go there. Everyone wants to cruise in between. And when you see somebody who's wearing a Disney World jacket, you're not like, ugh, Disney World. You're like, you went to Disney World? I just went to Disneyland. And you guys just both talk about what an amazing summer you had rather than being like, oh, well, they didn't go to my park, so we're not friends. You know?
Yeah. Would you say that like Disneyland fans or Disney parks fans, would you say that they're like mean at all?
No, not at all. Now, I have ran into there's a little bit, I think this is a little bit more like drilling down to Disneyland, but I have noticed that the California residents are sometimes bothered by the out of staters
Yeah.
because it, it can fill their park up. They like the days where there's less people. And it's easy, like if you're just a city away to be like, oh, it's a Thursday afternoon, let's hop on over. But like Saturdays are probably harder for them because all of the out-of-staters are there on Saturday. And so the reason I picked up on that is because during COVID, when it was California residents only, and then they had opened it up to people out of state, Miranda and I had walked past a couple people who were from California, and they were talking to each other about how they missed the days when it was just California only. So I think it's purely just like a numbers thing. I don't think they dislike us or anything. I think they just prefer the lower numbers and the less wait times,
Did you go up to them and you were like, oh yeah, those non-California people, they are the worst?
we were like, just blend in, just be cool. We're trying not to laugh when we hear drama around us. We just like, I live for the drama, but I don't like to join. So I was just like laughing so hard, and I was just trying to be cool about it.
I think I would do that. I think I'd be like, oh yeah,
Ugh,
those non-Californians, as I'm like
those
eating a potato raw.
yeah, you got like a hat with a potato on it.
Like the palest of pale. No way would I be from California.
Right. Yeah, that's how you can tell they're out of staters though. They usually wear shirts from like their local college, or like it'll say their city on there or something. Because the culture is to dress up,
That's true.
so you can tell when they're either not hardcore, they're there with their family and it's just sort of a trip that they got drug along on, or they're new and they didn't know yet. The first time I went, I was wearing like this, I don't know, plain colored t-shirt, and I looked around and I was like, were we supposed to bring Disney clothes? But I went to the gift shop so fast.
Yeah, I would say you helped me out with that the first time, because like I got to go recently within the last year for like, or I guess the last couple of years for the first time. And I was like, what do I wear? What do I do? And you like had like a pack, and you were like, listen, you're gonna need this, this, this. And it was like a Disney pack. And I know you have a name for it. I can't remember what it is.
My Disney pack?
Like the thing that you take into the park with like moleskin and all that.
Oh, yeah, it's just I just have a Disney backpack. I should give it a name. Unless
Larry.
I forgot about Larry. My trusty Larry bag. Yeah, it has all the things in it because like the first time you go, it is so rough. Like you think, oh, I've gone on walks before, I'll be fine. Like you're easily walking 20-30,000 steps. Like it is insane. And you either think, oh, I'm not going to walk that much because that's crazy talk, I'll sit down, but like you're going to be motivated because you're going to want to ride those rides, and you're going to want to make your fast passes and all that jazz.
Yeah. Yeah. You even told us to wear matching shirts because it was me and Preston.
Yeah, it's a thing. And if you're paying for Genie Plus, you get the photographer and all the pictures that come with it for free. So you might as well, choreograph pictures and put them together so that when you go, because some of my favorite pictures I have of me and Miranda are in front of the photographers, because they will monopolize certain monuments in Disneyland. And so you can get your picture in front of those pieces if you have the photographer do it.
Yeah, which by the way, I am upset that I didn't know this. And this is sort of just, I guess, like a little bit later on about like why do people love or hate it. So we could sort of shift that way about like in the podcast wise, but like something that I didn't know and I was so sad is that Genie Plus gives you those photographers, right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know. Well, and I don't blame you. I blame me because I probably there was just so much information.
So much information. I should
And
just write a little pamphlet.
I know, but you'd be writing the pamphlet and you'd be like, "Whoa, this is like a short novel."
Just publish it, call it a day.
Yeah, I was so sad because like Preston and I went, and that was right after we had gotten married, and I think I would have made him take all the pictures because he couldn't say no. He'd be like, "This is a new thing. I can't break it."
Yeah, and you gotta get your money's worth, you know?
Yeah.
And the cool part is sometimes you'll find a photographer just walking. Like they almost seem lost. Like, are you going to your post? Are you at your post? You can go up and tap them and or say hi and be like, "Hey, are you taking photos?" And they'll be like, "Oh yeah." So like instead of looking like bored and just standing in one spot, they sort of mosey. And so if
Mm.
you see a photographer on the lonesome, they're like on the clock. They'll take your picture if you approach them. Um
Whoa. Fun fact number one already.
I know. So like that's my favorite is just to see a board photographer because then you don't have to stay in line. Cause like if you're in front of the castle, for example, they'll like have 5 photographers and there's like this giant line. But quite honestly, I've stood in that line. It takes maybe 10 minutes because the photographers are super efficient. And like they don't sit there and just take orders. They'll like take 3 photos and then shoo people away.
Whoa. That's actually a
Yeah.
really good tip because I think that's one of the reasons why I have a tough time with Disney is because like I know going there that I'm not just paying the park fee. I have to tack on the 60, like so what it's like $60 for Disney or Genie Plus.
It's shoot, I don't know. It's a chunk of change. I'll say
It's
that.
yeah.
It's obviously not as much as like the day entry, but it's enough for you to be like, I could just go to Lagoon with this money.
Which by the way, for the people that don't know, Lagoon is an amusement park in Utah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's definitely an investment, but like for the pictures alone, and like it also includes the ride pictures. So like when you're posing on the rides, you get those and you get the fast passes. So it's a little bit of an investment, but like to do it without the fast pass, quite honestly, you're just gonna get there, spend half the day without the fast pass, and then you're gonna be like, I should have just done Genie anyway.
Yeah, I would say that. Preston and
So,
I stood in line for 3 hours at the Animal Kingdom Safari.
oh, that's rough.
We played so many rounds of Heads Up. We were those people.
I actually appreciate those people because then I don't have to burn through my battery and I can secretly play with them. They just don't know I'm playing.
Which, by the way, I guess this is sort of like in the culture area of it. I would say that people, if you get the right people, they're pretty okay just to talk to you about. Like, if you were like genuinely like out there enough, you could be like, "Could I play?" And they'd probably be like, "Okay."
Yeah, 100%. You can totally, I mean, you get good at telling which people are dehydrated and which people like didn't get enough sleep the night before or haven't had like there are those people who are like just wearing it on their face, but then like there's the group of people playing Heads Up and you kind of just look at them and you're like they're living their best life. Like you can't be mad at that, you know?
Yeah, yeah. You know, I one thing that I genuinely wish wasn't a part of Disneyland culture, those family shirts where the mom and the kids match, but then the dad is like the dad's shirt says something along the lines of like scan here for payment or I'm only here for the beer or something like that.
Or like I've seen the one where they do most expensive trip ever. And I'm like, we all know this. We all invested. Like, you could have said no, but you also paid to customize that expensive t-shirt.
Yes. Yep, exactly. It's like you could have had a Disney genie day if you just didn't wear that shirt.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I think honestly and truthfully, if Disney were able to, or Disneyland were able to like lower their prices, like back to where they were, then I think I would be willing to go a lot more because like you did say it, I live in West Virginia, so I have to fly back home, right? So like our decision is whether do we go on a Disneyland trip or do we go home, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
like I could find like a cruise for like $500, you know? So it's like it's always a toss up, but it is worth it when we go. I do know that.
Yeah, no, I that's the tricky part too. That's why I haven't been to Disney World, but it's easier for me to go to Disneyland because it's just a hop, skipping away from Idaho versus flying across the country and going to Disney World is definitely a bit more.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you want to say any like other like is there anything that you think that we haven't really touched on of like specifically why people would love or hate Disneyland or the Disney parks?
Why they would love or hate it?
Yeah.
Well, yes, I've got lots of things I'd like to say.
And then just like start you like listing things and then like have like the grandma be like 84 years or what is it 80 years later or something like
Yeah.
that, you know?
I would say number one, the thing I don't love is the fighting groups. Like, um, people can get pretty heated in the park, and it's because it's kind of like a petri dish science experiment. The sun is hitting you in the face all day. And like some people are underprepared, so they don't wear sunglasses or hats or sunscreen, that kind of thing. They don't go indoors and cool off. They just stay outside and just like push through the day. They don't drink enough water. The food's a bit expensive. Some people are under eating or they're not eating like enough food to sustain those 30,000 steps. So it's just like a crazy mix of things that could go wrong. And it's obvious when people aren't taking care of themselves. You could easily just be like, oh, that child needs a nap. But like sometimes it's not even a kid, it's like a grown adult, and you're like, that guy needs a nap. You know?
Yeah.
Like you can just tell that it's not even them being like emotional about whatever's happening. They're just irrational because they're so tired or burnt out. And so I think that's the thing I struggle with is like those people have a hard time keeping their emotions to themselves. And if you're in line next to them, it's a little bit rough. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so you don't run into it too often, though. Usually they got a group of people that can call them out and be like, hey, go take a nap, Gary. You know what I mean? Or something like that. um, I would say another thing or a thing that I love is probably just like we kind of touched on it before, but like the camaraderie, like when you can tell you've met another like diehard or fan, they're like really kind to you and they're like, oh, where did you get those ears? Or oh, I have these, I have that person at home and I really love it. Um, I also would say like the unsung heroes are the cast members. I don't know their paycheck, but whatever it is, they need a raise. Like they do a really good job. Like one time, Miranda and I were at the parade, and
Is that what your ears are?
yeah, it's the Main Street Electrical Parade,
Oh,
and
cool.
we got some really sweet spots by It's a Small World, and there was a little empty space, and this girl comes and just sits immediately by us, which is not uncommon when you're in Disneyland because like eventually all the spots will fill up anyway.
Mm.
And she's like, hey, is it okay if I sit here with you guys? And we're like, yeah, that's no problem. And I don't remember how we got on the topic. She was a little more chatty than we were, so I think she probably just like rolled into the fact that she was a cast member who just got off work, and she went and got like a corn dog, carried it all the way to It's a Small World just to watch the parade before she went home for the day. And she was just chatting with us, and I don't know, like it was just kind of cool to hang out with a cast member, and like she was genuinely excited to work at Disneyland. She wasn't just there to pick up her paycheck, and she, like it was cool to see that after she was done at work, she stayed at work just to like enjoy the parade and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so I just, for the most part, they all really like being there, and they're like just as big of fans as we are. And they just chose to work there also, you know what I mean? So it's nice to see that, like, at least in her case, she wasn't jaded. She just really liked having fun and whatnot.
Yeah. I would say it was sort of intimidating when I went there for the first time because YOLO was a thing. Do you remember that?
YOLO, like
Yeah.
you only live once? Or
Yep. Yeah. You'd go YOLO, you know?
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
We tried to get every cast member to say YOLO. And there's this one cast member who was like, I thought he was going to like throw us out of the park because we kept like pushing him to say YOLO. And he was like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not gonna say YOLO. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna say YOLO. And we were like, come on. And he was like, YOLO. And I felt bad for him.
Oh, that's hilarious.
But I
Oh
would
my.
say, like, now as an adult where I'm not trying to force people to say a common phrase, yeah, I would say the cast members are like really, really nice.
Yeah, yeah, for the most part. I mean, I have ran into a couple grumpy gills, but for the most part, it's not enough to ruin your day, you know.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm not a fan of the reservation system. Super hate it.
Yes. And
Super,
that's
super hate it.
new.
Yeah, it's a product of COVID. And I just I get it from like a logistical standpoint, but like from an experience standpoint, it's annoying. There was a day where I showed up a day earlier than expected, but like we couldn't get in because they didn't have reservations. But we saw people leaving the park. That's the frustrating thing is like if you let's say just for conversation's sake, let's say the park could only hold 100 people and all 100 of those reservations were taken, but let's say 50 of the people left by lunchtime, then the park is 50 people empty the rest of the day.
Yeah.
That's what drives me insane is beforehand they would just keep a tally, and if you left the park you run the risk of not getting back in if it met capacity while you were out getting lunch or whatever. And I just appreciated that so much more because it's not just a placeholder for the whole day. You have to physically be in the park for it to count. And so you had the chance of getting into the park if people went to lunch or whatever.
Yeah.
So I do miss that. I mean, word on the street is they're kind of leaning towards going back to not having it, but I'll see it when I believe it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So
So
I just like I think that Disneyland is such a big machine, like such like so many like moving parts and moving things. I think they really get people on the nostalgia and on like the really there's something for everyone there.
yes.
Like you don't have to like Disney, the corporation itself, because there's so many things there that you could like. The food, the rides, the ambiance, all of it. And you don't even have to see one Disney film.
You're not wrong. Like there's this one of my favorite things is so like before I became a Disney fan, I wasn't big on jazz. Like just the genre of jazz music, I wasn't a really big fan of. But like you walk into California Adventure and it's kind of a step back in time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it plays music matching that time frame. And I'm not really good with dates or history. So I'm not gonna pick a time frame, but this time frame plays jazz.
1805. Just kidding.
I think it's more like the 1200s. No, I don't know. But they play jazz as their ambiance music. Like, I don't know, like Miranda's always pointing out Ella Fitzgerald and now when I hear jazz music, it just makes me so happy because it reminds me of Buena Vista going down California adventure, just looking at the shops and whatnot and eating a churro or whatever. And so just something like that. Like I'm now a fan of jazz music. And jazz music, Disney doesn't even really have a stamp on. They're just playing it in that part of their park. And so now I really like jazz music.
Yeah, yeah, I would say that. I would like I mean this technically goes on later to like pop culture babies, but I do know like the musical alone it has made like Disney a fortune. And then like
Mhm.
just like hearing it, yeah, you get all the good feels.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Anytime I'm like cleaning my house or going for a drive, I'll just listen. You can go on YouTube and look for the Esplanade music, or different music from the different lands, and it just perks me right up. I love it.
You'd be like the best teacher. You'd be like, all right, today we're in this land.
Right? I would.
You'd be like, all right, let's start out with a ride, and you just like play the ride.
Absolutely, I would.
All right. I think we could talk about loving and hating forever. And I'm sure like people are probably like screaming at us to be like, you need to talk about this.
Right.
And
Right.
but like I think that's the thing. Like Disneyland, like I said earlier, and like you also agreed with me, is like it's just so unique that so many people have different likes, different hates. That like I would say though, ultimately the likes outweigh the hates.
Yeah, I think that's true. And like honestly, it's it's there's like yes, I agree. I had so many thoughts just jumble up my brain. But ultimately, ultimately, there's not enough to hate to not go to Disneyland, even if you're not a fan, even if you've never even seen one of their movies. There's not enough to hate.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so top theories. I know that there's a lot of like secrets about Disneyland, and I know it because you've told me.
Oh,
So
what did I tell you?
so many things. For one, I can't. Maybe you and Kale told me this, but the skeleton in Pirates of the Caribbean, like the skull, is actually a human head,
Yes, it is. I
and
still
then isn't there like a light that is supposedly like always on because it was Walt Disney's office or something like that?
okay. I have heard that one, however, I haven't looked into it myself, but like something about how his apartment, I believe above the fire truck, the light meant that he was in his apartment.
Oh,
And
interesting.
so it's kind of like to pay respect to Walt if the light is on, as far as I understand it. I
Hmm.
should probably look into that stuff more. So there's only so many file cabinets in my brain, and sometimes I have to make room for things. But I will tell you this much.
Hmm.
I do know this because on Disney Plus they have a it's about the Imagineers. Can't remember the name of it now, but I'm sure if you just looked up Imagineer, it would be on there.
Okay.
Um, in the Indiana Jones ride, there's skeletons kind of tucked to your left. There's just this big row of skeletons, and one of them has one of those Mickey hats with the embroidery on it that says bones on it.
Oh,
And
that's
he's totally
cool.
there. He's totally there. You can see him. You have to be on the very far left of the car. And when you whip around the corner, kind of when the room opens up and you can see everything, and you're like, wow, this is amazing. The car whips you to the left. And so you have to like lean into the left and look back, and he's right there.
Wow.
So, like, you don't see him because he's kind of in the spot where you're like getting whiplash. But if you're looking for him and if you're focused, you can find him.
So I know like there's a lot of like little secrets in Disneyland, but like on the bigger scale of theories of Disneyland, do you feel, because I think I've seen like reports that it's like not getting as much business. Do you feel like that is true, or have you seen any research or anything?
I mean, just from my first person point of view, if they're not getting business, I don't know what to call those crowds. They are insane. They are nuts, nutsy cuckoo page. Like,
Okay.
I just, if, and the, with that mixed with the prices skyrocketing, they're probably doing super well.
Okay, but like, all right. I know that they just switched Splash Mountain, which by the way was really
Yes.
cool because you got to do something really cool that I'll let you talk about.
Okay.
Um, to Tiana's place, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, is there more rides coming to Disneyland that we don't know about that maybe you've heard or like seen or like I don't know,
You
like where do you think that Disneyland is going?
You know, I wish Miranda was here because she is a sponge for this kind of stuff. But if I remember, okay, there have been inklings that they might add another land or expand the land.
Mm.
That's as far as I know. And it's little old me, so I don't know. But that would make sense because like they can only keep retweaking everything so much, you know what I mean? And like the park is getting so full. It's like bursting at the seams. It needs more parks. It needs more land, something. I don't know how they keep doing it because it seems to me like they've used all their real estate, but then like when you hear about it, you're like, "Oh, they're putting in a whole new hotel." So I mean, I don't know as much as I know about their real estate, but I have heard that there are talks that they might look into expanding both California Adventure and Disneyland.
Whoa.
Um, yeah, just kind of like moving them both down more. So just like taking them and stretching them a little bit. But I mean, the trajectory on it, like I can't give you a specific year, but when Miranda told me this, I remember thinking, I'll be dead by then. I mean, not really, but like I was like, I can't wait that long. They have to they have to like chop chop if that's really the goal because they really are bursting at the seams. So I haven't looked into it myself, but like this, that's me hoping that it's like gonna go down. And Disney never really truly announces something until they like have a full plan in place. And even then, like when they announced they were going to close Splash Mountain, it took them like 2 or 3 years to actually like follow through with it. So it's hard to know if the theories are actually going to like go into play or if it's really like the thing is when you hear stuff like that, because gossip like that about Disney goes around all the time, there's a saying that people say, until there's an official release, it isn't official.
Hmm.
Because there's so much, like I'm a part of this group on Facebook about Disney gossip, literally. Like people will go on there and be like, I heard this, is it true? And people are always like, if there's not an official statement, then it's not official,
Hmm.
So I hope they expand because there really are a lot of people and sometimes it's hard to just be body to body all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. I heard that maybe Tron would be coming to Disneyland.
oh my gosh, Paige, I would pass out immediately. That would be so amazing. I'm actually kind of bothered that like Disneyland got ignored in that regard because that's my park and I want it.
I will say, okay, so I've been to Disney World and Disneyland. And for one, there's a lot of differences. And my favorite ride is in Disney World, Everest.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm a little bit bummed that it's also not in both parks because I remember for people who have been to Disneyland and not Disney World, Everest is like Matterhorn on steroids, but way better. And you're not sitting on the floor. And it just like has like way more like turns and drops and it's just so much more fun. And I remember Preston taking me for the first time and he was like, Matterhorn is my favorite. So we went on Matterhorn. That was like the second ride. First one was Star Tours. We had to ease ourselves in. Um and we got on Matterhorn and I was like waiting for like something cool to happen, like the Incredible Kids. You're like the Incredible Kid where he's like, what are you doing? And he's like, I don't know, waiting for something for cool or waiting for you. I don't remember what he said. Do you
I
remember?
know what you're getting at though. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was like, well, that was just okay. And he was like, that was the best ride ever.
Oh, that's funny.
Okay. But do you want to tell people like what you got to do for this last time?
Yeah, I got to go on I don't even remember if the trip was planned. I think we had just talked about it. And so my best friend Miranda and I were Disney besties, and we go to Disneyland as often as possible while still being financially responsible. That's key. And so we weren't sure if we were gonna go, but then we're like, okay, maybe we should go. And we had the days blocked off. Um, but we hadn't really done anything about it. So it had just basically aligned with our personal schedules. And it turns out we decided to go, and it turns out it happened to be on the last day that Splash Mountain was in operation, which is our favorite ride, like one of our favorite rides. And so we were like, holy cow, we're gonna be there when Splash Mountain closes. And it was really cool because we got to be there like when they closed the doors for the last time, and like there were people standing in line. Again, you gotta look at them and think they're living their best lives, because some people were kind of not happy, a little grumpy because they'd stood in line for a long time. Like everyone wanted to get Splash Mountain. But like people started chanting, one last splash, one last splash. And you could hear it like from inside the building, even though we were on the outside. It was hilarious. And then people were shouting it as they were going down the drop. It was so delightful, and there was just an overall just air of, like, excitement, like, not excited that it was closing, but, like, everyone was there for the same reason, so it was kind of like some weird family reunion, like, we were just all excited to be with each other and just hang out, talking to strangers. Everyone started like, the cast members took this group photo, and then there was, like, this impromptu song, like, everyone started singing Zippity Doo Dah in the park. That's my favorite. I'm always trying to get people to just randomly sing Disney songs, and people always look at me like I'm crazy. So, like, it was one of my bucket list items to have people spontaneously burst into Zippity Doo Dah. It was so great. So, yeah, I really liked it. It's gonna be missed, but I feel like for such a controversial switchover, Disney has no choice but to do a really good job.
Yeah.
So, I'm optimistic that they're gonna crush it. I mean, when they redid the Snow White ride, for example, I was like, "Oh, but it's like an OG ride. What are you doing to it?" But now it's like amazing. Like, I don't even remember what it used to be like. I like the new version way better. And Guardians, I was mad that they took Haunted, oh no, whoa, Hollywood Tower of Terror. I was mad they took that away and turned it into Guardians. I even like remember hating the movie. I was
Hmm.
like, I'm not watching the movie. Um, but they did a really good job. Like Guardians is way better. I love it so much more. And I know you rode the Halloween version of it.
Yeah.
Not a fan. Not a fan. That one's that's meant for a very special crowd.
My heart just drops thinking about it.
But Miranda and I were just talking about how when we go, because we're going this week, when we go, it's gonna be the Halloween version, and we were like, ugh, now we're gonna have to make sure to go in the morning because we just like the regular version. The Halloween version's too much. Like I swear the volume is pumped up to max, and then they play this like crazy mix of. It's like if you made rock and roll music out of pots and pans. And I love rock and roll, but like it was made out of like pots and pans or something. Like it's just mind melting. I can't deal.
Yeah, I was a little bit bummed because I was like excited for the classic rock, and then I got there and it's just like not the best, but it is better than Hollywood Tower of Terror, which I've been on, and that one was
Yeah.
also stupid. Which I
I think
guess,
we need to go on it together and you can just like, hold on for dear life and I can die of laughter.
no, here's the thing. It doesn't even matter who I'm with, right? I have this like moment of like absolute just terror. And then I have to like realize that I'm okay. Like after the first like couple of drops, I'm like, okay, I know I'm gonna live, but I'm still not having the greatest time. But then afterwards, I'm like, oh, it's so fun. I can totally do it again. And then for the next like 3 hours while I'm waiting for this ride, I just like feel anxious. And I think that's what I don't like. It's anxious because my mind like makes it so much more like worse, you know?
Yeah.
But you could
Well,
throw me on Indiana Jones any day. I don't mind like getting thrown around like a rag doll, but the drop is what gets me.
well, the tricky part about Guardians is there's 6 different versions of the ride, so you can never anticipate. I mean, unless you start to memorize that particular because it's synced up to the 6 different songs.
Mm,
But for someone like you who doesn't ride it frequently, you can't anticipate the drops.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's terrifying about it.
Oh man. Ugh, thinking about it.
Good. Do you pose for that ride when you take the picture or are you like mid-screen?
I cannot even. I wish I had a picture of it. I know when it is, and I know when like people are like, no hands, and I'm like clinging on for dear life. Like the the handle that you share with a stranger. Yeah, that's my handle. Okay. That stranger can fend for themselves. I don't even care. And like, I don't care if they hold on to me. I don't care. But that handle, it's the only thing that's secure in that whole place, and that is mine. So just so you know. That was a quick
Uh,
rant. But
I love it.
okay, before we go, I just want to talk about a couple pop culture babies, specifically that Disneyland bought out. So I know that there's like Jungle Cruise, the movie,
Yes.
Pirates of the Caribbean
Hmm.
movies. Am I missing other ones specifically that came from Disneyland and not just Disney?
Haunted Mansion. They just came
Oh,
out with like their remake of their remake.
have you seen that?
No, I should go see it. I'm such a bad fan. I want to so bad.
Me
Um,
too, but I also it came out in July. It's a Halloween movie.
I know, right? I'm guessing they did it for merch, but that's just my own personal theory.
Mm,
which will be in time for like Halloween, you know.
yeah.
Um, they have, I think, two Haunted Mansion movies, and then Tower of Terror has a movie.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Um, I think it has Steve Guttenberg in it. Am I saying his name right?
I don't know.
It's 90s, I think. Oh, there I go throwing a date out. It probably isn't even the 90s.
You like fact check yourself. You're not even giving like the audience like
Yeah,
an opportunity. You're like, ah, that's wrong. I know. I
I
know.
I I failed history in college for a good reason, and I know this. I know my flaws. Uh, it's an older movie, but it's a good one. And then they came out with the Tomorrowland. That one has George Clooney in it.
Oh yeah, I forgot. I've never seen it.
That one's a good watch. I can't, aside from borrowing the name of the land, I didn't really I mean, there were like little like there was the likeness of Space Mountain in there, but like Jungle Cruise was the Jungle Cruise. Like they pulled the skipper jokes and everything, but like Tomorrowland was more or less just a very loose interpretation of Tomorrowland.
Mm-hmm.
So, but still a good watch.
Is Figment a part of that, or is what did Figment come before?
Um, Figment, I believe, is a Disney World thing.
Oh, mm.
Uh,
I'm the only one in this conversation that's been to Disney World, and I spent 80% of my time on Everest. So, oh,
I'm sure there's more that I'm like missing. I'm sure of it. But a lot of it is brought into Disneyland. So I think those are probably the main ones.
interesting. Okay, now I have a few questions, rapid fire ish. Okay,
Okay.
on a scale of 1 to 5, how nerdy do you have to be to go to Disneyland to enjoy it?
0. Like, I mean, if you're a foodie, bam, win. If you love music just in general, bam, win. If you love thrills, bam, win. If you don't love thrills, bam, win. There's like everything you can appreciate about it. And like a lot of stuff that I like, now I pulled from my trips to Disneyland. Like my first charcuterie board that I ever tried was in Disneyland, and it wasn't my favorite. There were good and bad parts. I definitely wasn't made for me, that particular board, but I did enjoy like the concept behind it. I think it was meant to be paired with wine, and I was drinking a San Pellegrino, so it didn't really bring out the flavors.
Muted them.
Yeah. Yeah, but it was so great. Just so stuff like that. Like I've pulled interest from my visits to Disneyland. And so I think if you go in with absolutely no knowledge whatsoever of like Disney movies or whatever, you can still enjoy the experiences.
Cool. And do you, on a scale of 1 to 5, and I think I know your answer already, if I had place money, like on a generic like scale of like overall put togetherness, what do you think Disneyland is at
Put togetherness, I would
for
definitely,
enjoyment?
for enjoyment, 5. I would say just a 5 overall, because Disney doesn't do things halfway. Like for example, the food, they hire the best chefs. So like I don't know, just there's so many foods that I've eaten there that I can't even find in my town. Like they make all the things, and they make them at the best quality possible. And like I said, their cast members are high quality. The music, top notch. They even just do things like they pump scents into the air. So during Christmas, they pump like a gingerbread slash peppermint smell into the air. Or when you're walking past some of the stands, they pump a popcorn smell into the air. So like you're just your senses are overwhelmed, but in a good way, all the way
Yeah,
around. And so they just don't do things halfway. It's 100% amazing.
I think you're right. I 100% also agree. I think it's a 5. I want like a part of me is like, oh, I should have said 4.9 because nothing can be that perfect. But if an organization is considered perfect, I think it would be Disneyland.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, there's even other companies that model their customer service around Disneyland. So
So if you met somebody who was like, I've never been to Disneyland, how would you get them if like to get them involved in Disneyland? How would you get them like interested in it?
I would probably just say it's not even about the movies. Like you could be a fan of Disney and enjoy Disney just based on being a fan, but like um there there are so many things there that don't even have to be Disney related. They just happen to be like Mickey shaped, like their macaroons, for example. I had never really been a fan of them, but I am a fan of them at Disneyland, or
Hmm.
like, the only churro I'd ever tasted was at Costco, which is fine. But since I've eaten a churro at Disneyland, I'm like, I refuse to eat other churros because it's not Disneyland. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you
And
mean.
so anyway, I mean, people have been to generic theme parks and they have a blasty blast, you know what I mean? And so I just try to tell them this too is also an amusement park. It may seem incredibly niche, however you want to say it. Um, but in a general sense, it is an amusement park and they just go balls to the wall with everything. So how could you not want to at least try it a little bit? That's
Yeah,
all I'm saying.
yeah, I agree. I
Am I
think I
allowed to
also
say that? I'm sorry if I wasn't.
will have you back. I would say also go follow Heidi and Miranda's TikTok page for Disney tips.
Yes.
It'll be
We
linked below.
yes. Feel free. We are full of tips and tricks and we learn new ones every day and we can't keep them to ourselves. No gatekeeping on our end.
Yes, that's true, which is something that we talked about and why we created this whole podcast is because there's so
Yeah.
many things that are like new to people and they just need to know about them. They just want to understand it a little bit more. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
go
and
ahead.
it's an investment. It's an investment to go to Disneyland. No joke. And so many people go there and do it wrong the first time and then they come home and they're like, I hate Disneyland. That was the worst trip ever. But it's because you really truly have to do research to do it right or know somebody. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. Which, by the way, we sort of talked behind the scenes, and I think it would be a great idea. Um, in the future, we're probably gonna have a Heidi back, and Heidi has like 1,000 ideas and tips and tricks of how to just enjoy your time at Disneyland, and what to avoid and what to not avoid.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But thank you for joining us. Caleb will be back next week. He just was feeling a little bit under the weather, but
Are
we've
you
had so much fun with Heidi. Oh,
Yeah,
I talked over you.
I talked over you. I'm sorry. I'm so new.
That's okay. I was just gonna say I've had such a fun time, and I'm so excited to do a podcast with you and Caleb. I think that'd be so fun.
Yeah, I had lots of fun. I definitely miss Caleb, but I also had lots of fun.
All right. Thanks everybody.
You like my shirt?
Yeah, I was gonna throw on something Disney, but I should have put on a Disneyland sweatshirt.
I was gonna wear the yellow one,
Me too.
but
But
it's
it's
so
so
hot.
hot.
I know. I was guessing you were gonna wear the yellow one, and I was like, that would be so amazing. But like, look at my face. I'm dying inside.
I know. Oh
If
my
you
gosh,
want to
that's freaking
match,
hilarious.
if you want to match, we can just like wear it for a little and then take it off.
Maybe just send me a picture with you in it. That's freaking hilarious.
Oh, okay. I like that idea.
I might put this blurb in there. That's hilarious. Wow.
Nerd.